Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. All opinions are those of the speakers. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGC for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the 56th Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum podcast. Today, we're joined by Mr. Hoover and Rick Barto from Santa Cruz Guitar Company. So we're going to get a little bit of overview on the current latest NAMM show, which it looks like everybody's kind of recovered from now. And then we're going to talk some strings. So string us up. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
There you are. So, Richard, strings.
We're really on a roll with our strings. Historically, now it's almost the better part of 2 decades that we worked on the development of this project. And the purpose of it was to make strings for our guitars that were as good as our guitars. And this isn't a dismissal of any company out there that makes strings. It's just they feed the market that they think, the market demand they think exists out there. And they think guitar players are cheap. I've said this before, where a violin player pays maybe $120 for 4 strings. We want them for $10 or $15, and that's what we get. We needed a $100 string for our guitars, and through associations with Stanford Graduate Acoustics Physics Program, the Naval Postgraduate School Physics Program, and people in the industry. And one of the things that was remarkably easy was to talk to people I already know in major string manufacturers and ask them what would they do if price wasn't an object. What kind of improvements would they do if they thought people could pay for it? That combined with just more precision manufacturing and the principle that we had of a cohesive tension on the strings so that they work more efficiently to pull the bridge to give better volume. The tensions are arranged so it's easier to play and more logical to play. And it turns out that the precision of manufacture gives us about 3 times the tonal life of the string than just coating them does. So we've got a big hit in our hands, and we've extended from our low and mid tensions to dadgad, baritone, 12 string. And what's new, I'd like to let Rick give you a little science background on the development of the dadgad set, which was a real need. To introduce Rick to others, Rick has been with me a long time. He's my right-hand guy. His official title is Vice President of Operations, and he knows his stuff. So let's hear about the dadgad set, Rick.
Thanks for the introduction, Richard. Yeah, the dadgad set was actually one of the easier ones for us to develop as an offshoot of our low and mid tensions, simply because the low and mid tensions, we already came up with the science on what the tensions of each string should be. And with dadgad, what happens is as you drop the tunings of those few strings, you lose tension. Obviously, those strings become more slack. So it was a very simple idea. You just add that tension that you lost back into the string by changing the quarter wrap ratio and basically just bringing it back to where the low and mid tension strings were at to begin with. So say you were to put the dadgad strings on your guitar and just go to standard tuning, you actually have much more tension than our low and mid. So that's the whole point. So dadgad was relatively easy to develop, and it was a fun one. The whole, like Richard said, the whole point is that the strings feel like it takes the same amount of energy for you to press your finger and fret the string. You don't want one string to feel more tense than another. Might trip you up when you're, playing some lead or even strumming some chords with your fingers in different positions. And also that the strings sound the same to your ears no matter which string you're plucking, meaning we hear different pitches at different levels. So the human ear is actually designed to hear higher pitches better than lower. Some may say that it's through evolution of babies crying or hearing things in the woods, things like that. But really what that means is, even if you were to look at the decibel range of your low E and your high E, and say it's coming off exactly the same, it's technically screaming at the same loudness. Well, we actually hear that high E better than the low E, so it sounds louder to us even though it's at the same loudness. So what we do is we adjust for the equal loudness contours to make sure that each string sounds as loud as the other, so that it's not overpowering any other string on the guitar. And that really helps the tuning of our guitars come through, and what we do to change the EQ of the guitar itself, versus the strings adding an additional element that is hard for us to control. So again, Dadgad was fun and relatively easy.
I love Rick, what you were talking about with so the Dadgad set or any open tuning, you're lowering strings and you're losing tension, or you're losing volume and just integrity of sound. So to add the tension lost at the back into it at the same tuning and the same gauge of string, and you told that what that trick was. You just closed the proprietary secret here, which is you can alter the ratio of the quarter wrap of the same size string and alter the tension, which increases the volume and changes the feel. And with that, this is why we call these mid-tension or low tension, to get people to pay attention to when you look at the gauges of these strings, they're not much different than another set of a medium gauge, let's say, but the tensions are radically different on those. We do supply the tensions if people need them, but they're confusing because, for instance, a 0.022 string is actually fractional. It's in between 022 and 023. So it's 022 and a half, right? So try explaining that over and over again to everybody that calls. So hopefully people learn as we go here and understand why there's a great benefit to these strings. That again, we developed for our guitars, but they work for every guitar. And we decided to sell them so we can get the scale up, and it costs less money to make.
So you have the low and the mid tension in the standard tuning. Do you also offer low and mid in the Dadgad, or is there only one tension in the Dadgad?
Yeah, we do. The only one, I think, if I'm correct, Rick, we didn't offer a mid and low in the 12 string set.
That is correct. Baritone has a mid and low. Dadgad has a mid and low. 12 string does not. It was just a little too cumbersome. And also, because there's double the amount of strings, we found that it didn't really have that much of a difference in the feel or the sound to offer the mid and low. We really only needed one set for the 12 string.
That's pretty big news. I mean, we didn't know that there was mid and lows for the baritones or the Dadgads, which is a great, which is a great thing to pump out there. But reading some of the forums, and I think you guys were way ahead of your time on this, because all of a sudden, we're starting to see other string manufacturers sell some pretty expensive acoustic guitar strings. And I think you guys were just ahead of the game on that. But when you look at what people are saying on the forum, those tensions, which other manufacturers do print, are very confusing to people. They look at the tension and they go, well, why isn't this like this without the the background, the physics background of understanding, that what you guys are telling us here, which
I
I
tell you, these
get.
guys are pulling the black magic out of the business.
Yeah.
Richard, that's a beautiful thing that you said. That's exactly parallel with what we did to guitar making over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
When we started out, Gibson and Martin made acoustic guitars, not humans. And people had gotten used, especially into the 70s and so forth. It was like guitars were dumbed down, and but that's what people could buy. And when we came up with the violin equivalent of the acoustic guitar, it was a hard sell, and it took a long time to get credit from, or credible really. And today we see that the largest manufacturers, Yamaha, Samick, on down to other boutique makers, have used our principles to improve their guitars and move forward. So we were way ahead of our time, and it's miraculous we didn't go out of business trying to push this. And today we reap the benefits of it. And that's, in fact, that's one of the things I wanted to use in our presentation, our marketing of the strings is, look what Santa Cruz did to the acoustic guitar. Imagine what we could do with the strings. And we approached them the same way, is like continuing improvement. Why not better? Anything that we can't make that goes along with our guitar, strings, tuners, cases, we design and have made for us, because the mass market is not made to the highest caliber, right? And sometimes you don't even have an offering for the super good stuff. So it's not a boast that we're better than anybody else. It's just that we took the risk and went forward, did it right, did it the best, and here we are. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a boast.
A fair one, though.
Yeah, but that's what we do. And luckily it's worked. Sometimes we still get the people like, how do you sleep at night charging so much for a guitar? You can buy a guitar for $500. Is the continuous improvement. You can always improve on things, whether inspiration or technological breakthroughs, and that's what we do as a company. And I'm really thrilled to have this project with strings come to fruition.
So one of the questions on the forum, and apparently it's a rage right now, is Monroe, M-O-N.
Oh, Manel, or
Manel,
yeah,
Manel. You don't see that in your future.
No. Here's the thing. First, I'll give you the take on Manel. That's how I pronounce it, right or wrong. Is we're not in the string business. There's plenty of brands of strings. The world doesn't need another brand of strings. What we needed and other people needed just a way upgrade into a real professional tool for your instrument to make it work. And we only sell them to support our cause and try to get the scale up and the cost down of making the sets of strings. If we make under 500 guitars a year. If we ordered 500 sets of strings, custom, can you imagine? I mean, I think it'd be like $500 a set, right?
Yeah.
So when we can scale this, we can get our costs down, and everybody else can benefit from our research, right? So we use, it's not really a proprietary alloy, but it's unusual. And the Manel, so we have phosphor bronze, 80-20, whatever. Phosphor bronze, I really believe, was a marketing term that came up to set a certain brand of strings apart. It's become a common thing. Now, Manel is something that came out from Martin in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
They had a set of Manel strings. And I remember trying them out at that time without near as much a sophisticated ear or the experience of what I was listening to. But I remember at the time thinking, wow, I wonder what the deal is about these. They sound different, but they're not like, they don't sound like new strings. I wonder why. And then I think they were a marketing failure, personal observation, and they went away. And then they came back. And Tony Rice was really nuts about them. And the reason is they sounded the way he liked. And you know what that was? He hated new strings. He wanted to really work strings in until the edge was taken off and they were nice and, just uniform, well, I'm just saying edge to them. And that's what I see in the Monel. They sound like broken in strings. And that's a cool thing, but it's a subset, right? If you want flavors and colors, Monel could be one of them for you, but it doesn't make the string overall better made or the advancements that we've gone through on it. It just gives it a different sound. So it's a real personal choice, and it is a trend, right? We had this conversation this morning about Adirondack spruce. And someone was asking, like, how come I don't see Adirondack spruce in our early builds? Like, because nobody cared about it, except the people that were real aficionados and knew old Martins were Adirondack. And there was nothing special, and most people didn't know what it was. And we didn't have any call for it. And when we did build with it, people didn't even notice. So today I'd say, oh man, what do you think, Rick? 60, 70% of our guitars could be Adirondack. I mean, it's just become the standard, right? So,
yeah, if not more.
Oh, what's that?
If not more. That's
yeah. So today, Monel's the buzz, but phosphor bronze was the buzz when it first came out. So not dismissing it, but again, it's a flavor or a color. And that's not what we're doing in strings. We're giving the best we can possibly do. And next year, I want to be able to say the same thing, that we've improved on it. So sorry to run on that, but there you go.
I don't think it was a run on it at all. It was a little bit of a spanking, and I appreciate that. I could take it. No, it is. You guys were making these really amazing mahogany guitars, and nobody else was making these mahogany guitars. And then all of a sudden, everybody seems to be making mahogany.
That's a great example.
Yeah, I think it really, you look around and you just, at one point it was inch and 3/4 necks. Everybody had to have that. Nobody, 1 11/16 was
archaic.
Yeah, archaic. And I find that I went along, I drank the Kool-Aid on that one. And I'd pick up a guitar and I'd say, well, how's the neck? And they'd say, well, it's a 1 11/16. And I wouldn't even bother to listen to it.
That's awesome. A really good example. The flavors thing. Here's a good example. Remember, you gave me a wonderful testimonial for using the Santa Cruz parabolic tension strings on your resonator guitar.
Yeah.
And it's come up before. Well, why don't you make a set for a resonator? Because it would be a gimmick. They already work great on a resonator. Yeah. We would just put a different name on it, and that's silly. That's not who we are. So, and being genuine in our offerings here, maybe it's not the best marketing, but we're not about deception. We're about the real thing.
And I'd like to push that point forward with our strings too, if I may. Just like Richard said, we don't tend to follow the trends. We like to follow the science. We have the benefit of working with a Stanford acoustic physicist who's currently working on his thesis. And, he comes in every few weeks and we talk a lot about strings, wood, guitars, sound, music theory, pretty much everything under the sun. And there's a common theme that not a lot of people market nowadays, which is, just as Richard said, it's not really about what is better. It's more about what your personal preference is and what kind of sound you're trying to get with the music you're making yourself. And that's for wood, Adirondack spruce. I had a lot of people come up to me at NAMM and talk about wood, and a lot of people have this perception that Adirondack spruce is better than Sitka. And I always have to question, what do you mean by better? Like, in what way? And so it really comes down to, it just depends on what kind of sound you're trying to get out of the guitar, not what is better. And it's the same thing, with how we build our guitars. There's no one guitar that we carry that's better than another. It's just what you want out of the guitar. So we don't really follow trends. We tend to follow the science, and that really helps us mold our guitars and our strings into what people want out of the sound.
That's great, Rick. I don't know the scope of what we have here today, Richard, but I can't help but add this to us. There is such a misconception, and driven by internet and opinion and the way human beings think. What's the best? Well, what we're talking about with woods, contrary to a lot of folklore, is the woods contribute a degree of bright to dark. Where we have the EQ is bass to treble. The woods are tone, clear, bright, articulate to warm, round, blended, right? And in that scale, you'll find the different top woods, let's say, to stick on that. And Adirondack is on the more articulate, clear, and bright end. And they are the best wood for a player like Eric Sky, who wants to play every note on the fretboard, have you hear each one separately and all the nuance he puts into it. He needs a clear, articulate wood, and that's Adirondack. Somebody doing singer-songwriter, rhythm, occasional single line lead and so forth would probably do a whole lot better with Sitka without that super clarity and articulate nature, but just more forgiving, friendly, blended tone. So Sitka's the best wood for that player.
And it's the same with our strings. So we do put specific string sets on our specific models. But if you think about it this way, when you pluck a string, that string is bending, meaning it's going to change pitch because it's becoming more tense and less tense. That's how a string bends when you pluck it. And when you exert a large amount of force on that, that means you're stretching it and it's loosening in a wider range, meaning it's changing pitch even more. And what that can do is that can lead to inharmonicity, where the overtones can start battling each other and sometimes cancel each other out, and you won't have as much sustain or development of overtones, or it just doesn't sound as complex. So if you're a singer-songwriter type and you're used to really hammering on your guitar, you might want a little more tension in your strings to kind of work against all that energy that you're putting into it. If you're a fingerstyle player where you're used to, finger picking and not really hammering on the strings, you can get away with a little less tension overall on your strings, so that you can play lead, you can bend a little bit easier, it's a little bit easier on the hands, but you're not leading to that inharmonicity that can happen when you're really, really plucking very hard. So you can use a mid-tension set or low-tension set depending on your personal preference, and that's why we want to give all those options.
Can I ask perhaps a stupid question just to hear what your thoughts are on this? How would you compare a low tension set on a standard scale guitar to a mid tension set on a short scale guitar?
Great question, and a little too complicated for me to answer right now because it's just simply a calculation. I could take those parameters, put it into a chart that I actually have pre-filled out for all of our everybody at the office, where they can put in the different scale lengths. They can even put in different pitches. They can put in say that you're playing some tuning that's not what normally people play, right? It's you may have even come up with your own tuning. I can put in the pitch of each string at your scale length and tell you exactly how that adjusts your tensions, whether it's for the better, for the worse, if they're going to be a little less balanced. And maybe we can even offer some ideas on how to you buy a mid and a tension and you mix a couple. You never know. It's you can really go that deep into it. And again, I have a spreadsheet that has all the formulas built in to take care of all of that.
That's great. Thanks, Rick. I'll give you the artistic answer, Chad. So there's an unfortunate folklore that smaller guitars put light gauge strings on them because they're tinier, and light gauge strings are tinier, and it's a fallacy. The longer the string length or scale length, the more tension it takes to bring it up to the same pitch on than on a shorter scale length. So the shorter scale length guitar is going to be less tension to bring it up to concert pitch. And to put a higher tension string on that, it would be a good thing to balance it out. So you could come out even, right? And you know, as Rick has talked, I doubt it comes out even, but they're compensating both directions on that, right? Higher tension string on a shorter scale to bring the tension up, make it louder and so forth. But again, some people want that, some people don't. Loud is not good in itself. It's a quantity, not a quality. So,
Right. Right.
you know, unless the guitar was built ultra light and somebody recommends never put anything on this but extra light strings, it's a cheap experiment to find out. And here's an important thing. When you change tensions on your guitar, your action will change, your neck relief will change, and it's a good idea to have your luthier check your specs before and after you change strings and be able to adjust for it and make it equally playable.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I know that there is among a lot of the higher end solo builders, it's becoming more common to see fan fret designs with the idea that you're affecting the tension on the strings differently across the fretboard. And you know, I don't understand the physics behind it. Obviously, I like the artistic answers, Richard. Thank you. But it's interesting to see how people are paying more attention to how tension and scale length and all these other factors play into the playability of an instrument.
Absolutely. And this is, you know, fan fret guitar is exactly what you talked about. It's to make the scale length longer on the lower strings and higher on the others. And you bring the tensions more into a cohesive, a unified feel and sound, etc. And we're doing that with strings.
Right.
So I'm not saying our strings replace a fan fret, but we're doing the same thing. Now, you know, fan frets I guess we credit Ralph Novak for that. Am I right?
He was one of the early, he was one of the early builders, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to give him a shout out for that. However, I'm going to say this. Can you imagine entering the market today as an individual builder and trying to get noticed?
No.
It is like crazy thick feel. And we all publish our own magazine today, right? So it's hard. And to have something unique that draws attention and gets people talking about you, I'm afraid is pretty necessary. You know, we did it just on, as Rick's articulately said, on fundamentals, right? And we built on fundamentals and we showed people we can make a better guitar. But man, if it was hard for us to get noticed back then, I can imagine what it's like today.
So, okay, so let's take this to the 12 string and the baritone real quick. I assume your baritone sets are designed primarily for your 27-inch scale baritones. And is there any other consideration you had when you made those strings? I know that one of the problems with some baritones is that if you get too much harmonic content, it can make the baritone sound kind of muddy.
Yeah, and it should sound like a piano, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, you know, we addressed that with the quality of the string to start with. And Rick, what special considerations, anything different from doing like our other sets that we did for the baritone?
Yeah, so the baritone was a little bit harder because we had to kind of start from square one with the, you know, baritone's a special tuning, a special scale length. So there wasn't really anything I could just adapt from our normal strings. We had to really go back to the fundamentals and think about playability, equal loudness contours, and how to limit inharmonicity to have lasting sustain. So with that, we did a bunch of trials and tests. We have a system that we work off of to get there. And really the thing that was very noticeable and it speaks to exactly what you said. The muddiness of when you get down to the baritone tuning is it really seemed like it was hard to get the low end responsive enough in the strings, meaning it seemed like the rest of the strings had overpowered, specifically, the lowest string. And it was really hard to find the perfect tension to make sure that that string was noticeable and fit within the equal loudness contours. We did it, but it did take a little bit more attention than people are normally used to, and that's maybe something you'll notice on our baritone strings. Is like if you were to buy a set of any other maker, you'll probably notice the lower string is a little bit slacker than our string. But what really helped out with that is when I was playing it. So again, to get equal feel is really hard, and I wouldn't say we've perfected it yet, but we've gotten pretty close. The reason being is when you fret a string and you press on it with your fingers acting in a different position no matter where you're playing, meaning when you hit that low string, you're really stretching your finger, and it's pressing on that string in a different way than when you're playing, say, the highest string, when you curl your finger over and you can press down that. So it's like that that different motion that you're pressing on a string really affects its playability. And so it seems to be that there's more force that you can enact when your finger's outstretched, and therefore that extra tension, you don't really notice it. It's not like it feels more tense. It does feel equal across all strings. So we got there. It was just a little bit harder with the baritone. But now what we have is a string set that doesn't sound as muddy. It really sounds equal across every single note that you play. I'm really happy with that one. That one came out the best, and it drove me to want to build a baritone for myself.
Well, this is why I'm asking this, is having a couple of Brosmans in my closet. I have played with strings a great deal. And I played with everything from some sets that feel like they're made from suspension bridge cables to just using standard, heavy gauge or even medium gauge, just to try and find something that works with each of these instruments. And so I'm going to be very excited to actually try those out. I can't wait to actually get a couple of sets of those on and see how they work. But let me ask you this. Since you're talking about trying to maintain even tension, are you then recommending a specific tuning for the 27-inch scale, or is there a little bit of range of tuning that can be done with those?
Definitely. Oops. Hold on. Am I off of mute? Sorry. Definitely a range of tuning. We did base it off of a specific tuning, but we did try to test many of the baritone tunings you may enter into, and it would adjust it in certain ways. But what we found is with certain tunings, what you would lose, you would gain something else. And really, I don't think they weren't far enough off of each other to make that big of a difference. Because you got to remember this. When you're changing the pitch and you're changing the tension, it's not like it's radically changing the tension, right? The strings have to be tense enough to actually create a note. So it's not like all of a sudden you're going down so far in pitch that it's slack on your guitar and you can't play anything, right? So it's not as big of a jump as it may seem, which allows our strings to really be very beneficial in all different baritone tunings.
Well, do you have one that is kind of like the target? Is it like a C or a C sharp, or?
You got it. C.
Yeah,
C. Okay.
it was, and designing the original with the artist with a ton of experience in using baritones. That's what we came up with as the standard. And as Rick said, we found if we standardize from there, the other tunings that people will go into, the relationships are close enough. It would be crazy to make a set for each tuning.
Yeah.
It would, in fact, it wouldn't be necessary, really.
All right. So all that's left is the 12 string. What's special and unique about that? I mean, what is just how tiny do you get now on the breaker string?
Well, and I'm going to let Rick continue on with his theme there, but I'm going to say that for this, 12 strings, like 12-string guitars, have mostly been an afterthought, like, oh yeah, then there's the 12 string. So in the construction of most commercial 12 strings, it's like, okay, put twice as heavy a braces on because there's twice as many strings, and use the same gears but double them up. So a lot of 12 strings, you put them in your lap and they fall on the floor head first because the peg head's so heavy, right? Or the top is so overbuilt to deal with the tension that it's not, so it only counts on the volume of the noise of the strings, and most of them sound really jangly and not very gratifying to hear. So same with the strings. It's like, okay, well, let's put a light gauge set and then the unwound strings with them. And it was like 12 strings weren't easy to play because of that illogical tensions that you dealt with. So that was the premise on this. It's a great iteration to improve upon from what was commercially available. And then we did, Rick, you were just going to say?
Yeah, obviously the 12-string set was twice as complicated. And really you press the two strings together at once, and that's what kind of made it complicated, because if one string felt significantly more tense than the other, you can kind of feel that difference. And also we have to have each of those sets across all 12 strings work together to feel good across the whole set. So it really, I wish I could say that there was some kind of easy formula that we followed to get there, but it was kind of stumbling forward for a bit. And then once we got our foundation, then we could use the formulas that we went through before to really dial that in. And the 12-string took the longest. And I would say it took a lot of back and forth between us and our the Stanford acoustic physicist that we've been working with, just for the equal loudness contours, because again, double the strings means double the calculation. So at the end, I'm pretty happy with them. Again, we've thought about, is it necessary to go into a low tension, mid tension, heavy tension type thing? But I don't think we need to. I think they'll speak for themselves. You put them on your guitar, they play beautifully, and I don't see you needing any other set.
Yeah,
Something I wanted to make sure is we don't overlook here or blow past is we're talking about the real serious science that went into the development of these strings, but I don't want to overlook the beta testing with artists. All of our iterations went to different people, and there was as many opinions that came back, but there was really good information that allowed us to have something that would please most of the people most of the time. So, real field testing was important too.
I thought the set I had and tested played like butter. I mean, I hate to use that phrase because it's way overdone, but
there's a reason cliches get repeated.
Yeah, the playability of the guitar went from okay to oh wow.
Awesome.
Just made it a big thing like that.
Well, and I'm looking forward to the fact that these strings on my other guitars hold up so well for so long. Having that same kind of quality of sound with longevity of usefulness on a 12 string is just a triple win.
Yeah,
that's great. As you guys know from on the forums, it's like some people won't even consider them because of price. The same reason manufacturers make $10 strings, right? Is like, I don't care what they are. I'm not paying 3 times the cost for any darn strings. But the fact that we get constant reports that they last 3 times longer just because of the precision of manufacture, they're missing that point. Oh, you pay the same, but you only have to change them 1/3 of the time. How's that for a marketing pitch?
I think the set of dadgads that I've had 4 months now, 5 months.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just keep
That's a great
going.
testimonial.
Yeah, they just keep going, you know. So that's fantastic.
Thanks for the chance to let us talk about that, but I know you have more agenda there, so we'll
Yeah, no,
roll.
I was just gonna ask if you wanted to give us any little thoughts on NAM. I know you have an out that we're gonna try to hit here. So
Well,
you
but
know,
before we
wait a
leave
minute,
this,
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute.
we did have one question from one of the Santa Cruz guitar owners on
Okay,
Facebook about the packaging on the strings.
right.
I guess there's been a change now to how they're being packaged.
Yeah, there is. There's a couple of things. Um, Live and learn. You know, we are, I've changed strings for half a century, and we often forget that we're all beginners at one point, and we operate at an expert level and assume other people can. One of them is we packaged our strings, uh, you know, so that we just figured, you can pick them out and you can see relative sizes, and it's no problem sorting them out. But for some people, that's really hard. And what we just did is we've now coated the ball ends alternately with brass and with nickel. So they go like gold, silver, gold, silver, gold, silver, and you can pick them out really easily by that and do it. Also, we had difficulty in shipping to Asia specifically, where people were having corrosion problems. We go, we've got this proprietary atmospheric treatment that keeps them from corroding, but they're also sealed in a package, and that's what maybe they're referring to. We changed from a paper package to a airtight seal so we can ship them overseas without corrosion. And still, we're having problems with the ends of the string poking through there and letting that happen. So continuous improvement again. We have improved that packaging, and I'm the same way. I get a product that I have bought for a long time, the package changes and it makes me nervous. But the packaging changes are all for improvement of stability, longevity, that kind of thing. We've also gone from this, even though arguably recyclable plastic package, we're going to a little paper recyclable box that they'll go in. So again, our packaging changes are for improvement, not for whimsy or cost savings. Is there anything else that you remember? I'm doing some graphic changes, but that's how it is. You just.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask is that you leave a little bit of blank space on the cover of the package so that when I change my strings, I can rip that cover off and write the date on and slip it in the guitar case so that I remember when I change them. Right now, the cover is so dark, I have to find a white pen to write on it in order to get the date on there.
Maybe the inside of the package.
I consider myself appropriately upgraded.
Well, the problem is the strings last so long and they still sound good. And you find yourself playing going, God, when did I last change the strings on this?
Oh, darn.
Open the case and you look inside and go, oh, really? Has it been a year and a half?
You can be sure I'm going to puzzle over that. Thank you.
Do you want to give us a little overview of NAM? It looks like
I sure would.
Looks like you were having a lot of fun down there.
Okay, so yeah, it was. Now understand, we're coming out of the darkness into the light from a 3-year hiatus in going to trade shows, festivals, and so forth. And like all companies, you find other ways to promote yourself and get things done. And on the bottom line, it looks, look, what's the difference? Why do we have to go to a trade show? And this year, some of the biggest companies were absent. And that's the reason, is because they found other ways to spend their money and they don't think they need the show to get business done. And like I've said before, most companies don't sell their guitars on sound or playability and marginally cosmetic. They sell them through marketing, right? You spend your money, you're loud enough, you'll sell more guitars. So when it comes to us, where it's really the experience with the guitar, seeing it, feeling it, touching it, that's important. The trade show is important to us. The Anaheim show is still an international show, so it's a place to be seen on the world stage. And most important of all, oftentimes we've had the discussion about the cost, which is a lot to do that, the time, the destruction of business, and then we have to hold 18 guitars from shipping for probably 3 weeks to a month. That's big cost. But what it is, it's the opportunities you have no idea that would exist until you're there. The serendipity of meetings, of sometimes people that you do business with for years, where we used to talk on the phone, now we send texts and emails, and something gets lost. And when you sit down at a table for a few minutes, opportunities come up you would never have imagined, and we get richer for it. So it's super well worth it for us. The absence of a lot of big companies there made us stand out. Even some of the boutiques only had offices, and therefore our full display of guitars was really, really amplified. I got the most gratification out of, once again, connecting with people that without trade shows, I wouldn't have a relationship. I've been at this long enough that I have really good friends that I see once a year or twice a year maybe, and at trade shows. And we had lost that contact through COVID. So a couple of them that were wonderful for me is I have a few wood people that I'm in the third generation. Went from grandpa to father to son. And I hadn't seen those people in a long time. And as I turned purchasing over to my really qualified professionals at Santa Cruz Guitar, I wasn't talking to them. And to sit down at a table with sometimes 2 or 3 generations and rekindle the relationship, we got stuff cooking that had been lost before. And that was probably the most moving part. The yogis from India, the Kolitz, German spruce suppliers from Germany, Bachmann from Italian Swiss border. And I've known these people forever. And the sitting down and talking was just really rewarding, and we'll do better business because of it. Let me see, I took a couple of notes on neat things that happened here. I of course can't read that. Oh, I know what it was. It's the serendipity again of people walking up, and we go, oh, yeah, I remember you. Hi, so-and-so. And my style was like, what was it that happened that we quit talking to each other? I can't remember. And the other person would puzzle for a while and come up and go, oh, that's what it was. Or that's what it wasn't. We had change in personnel and we got disconnected. And sometimes amends were necessary. Oh, I remember that disconnect or that problem. So glad to see you, because it's been on my mind to settle that, have one less brick to carry, and have some peace of mind. The opposites worked also. I ran into a wood vendor that I was really glad to see, because I always enjoyed him, having dealt with him for years. And as we began talking, I started to remember why. And as we talked about the stuff, and I remember his business practices, I went, okay, well, good. I remember that one again, so I'll be careful there. So just this wonderful connection of stuff between the trade and the public. So I I had a mission there also. I wanted to talk to the other boutique makers about our strings, because in bulk, we can do a pretty good price. And I think they'd improve the sound of their guitars if they used them. And again, we can scale and get our prices down. Also, we have new capacity that would allow us to do like neck carves and custom neck carves at a way lower cost than most people could do. And even though most companies are set up for now either CNCing their necks or have somebody do it, it's costly for them and it's distracting. And if they want to do a limited edition or a custom run, they no longer have anybody there that can carve necks, and it's a big deal to program. So with technology of being able to 3D scan and work with maybe 5-axis CNC, we can do it better. And I was seriously talking to the major names about allowing us to do contract work in that regard. So that's both a pitch and a illustration of making a living and paying 20 families by making guitars is a constant challenge. It's hard. And we're always trying to do ways to come up with different ways we can monetize our knowledge, our reputation, et cetera. So there's the last aspect, which is we had a great response. We had, many requests for new dealerships. We had dealers that forgot how cool our guitars were that were re-energized. So a lot of orders, a lot of customer appreciation, and a lot of new woods. So we'll be talking about some new wood opportunities I ran in there too.
Great.
What was cool for you, Rick?
There was three things of note. I'd like to focus on our guitars because there was three guitars that drew people in over and over and over again.
Cool.
I would say our most notable was we had a 1934 OM with Brazilian back and sides and a redwood top. And it wasn't like it was a 45 style. It wasn't too flashy. It had a really nice inlay on it. But what really drew people in was that redwood top. And it was awesome to see people getting excited about redwood because that's not everybody loves Adirondack, German spruce, Italian spruce, but redwood it needs a bigger audience. So that was great. It was just weird to see people drawn into that guitar specifically when there's a 45 style 1934 D not two guitars away, with the abalone 45 style all around it. So the other big showstopper was our little Firefly. We had a Brazilian Firefly sitting on the wall, and everybody says it's a cute guitar, and then they pick it out and realize that it's almost as loud as our dreadnoughts, and so they're shocked that they can hear it cutting through the noise of NAMM. And so it was really exciting to see so many people get excited about redwood, and that little Firefly, especially the Brazilian, just looked beautiful on it. And you could probably see pictures on our Instagram or Facebook or online. It's just a beautiful guitar.
Yeah, that's great, Rick. A credit I want to give here is we took Catfish Keith's signature model, which is a very cool guitar, and Catfish and his wonderful wife Penny joined us there and stayed at the house we stay at, and they were a delight. And Catfish performed a lot at the booth and really attracted people that had no idea, had never heard that kind of music before. And here's a guy with this little guitar, that people go, oh, little guitar, that means it's quiet and kind of mellow and so forth. No, he kicked ass with it and really brought us a new appreciation and audience for that instrument. And it looked great, sounded great, and Catfish was a wonderful addition to the ethos of our booth.
Yeah, I saw a lot of photographs from him. I cherish him as one of the really. He is living it. He is living it, and I really cherish that, and it's showing up. I mean, he was nominated for 2 or 3 things this year, and
Well deserved.
the music he's putting out is fresh.
I really agree. And a quick one for the ones that couldn't come this year that are stalwarts with us, and just because of the weirdness of NAMM changing the dates, they had conflicts. But Eric Sky, Jimmy Stillway, Bill Nershi, Scott Law, Happy Trom, they were sorely missed.
Yeah, it it's a different world. It's, it's a
It is.
different thing. It it's funny when I listen to you talk about it, that it really does. I know your feelings about NAM, and it really is a time when you can be one-on-one with somebody,
Hmm.
you know?
And I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No,
That's becoming increasingly rare.
yeah,
It's not that people don't enjoy it when they're doing it, but they forget because that's not the way information flows now. We're being kept from talking to people in our commerce all the time. If you try to, get customer service or whatever, we're kept away from each other. Um, and information flows differently, and people spend their money differently. And yeah, we talked about this at length, Richard. Uh, I am really grateful for NAM and their contribution to our success and our career, and most trade organizations as well. Uh, and the trade organizations fund themselves from these big trade shows. That's their revenue source. And the institution is waning in relevance through no fault of the trade organizations. It's the let's blame it on the internet, if you will, but the way we buy, sell, and communicate with each other is not face to face. And money's not spent that way. And yeah, further blow, I mean, this is happening anyway, but the big blow with COVID is people stopped going anywhere. They learned how to do it otherwise. And a company like Fender found different ways to spend their marketing money, and they found they were very effective. They were easily targeted, and they found more benefit. And they won't find the trade show relevant in that regard. And it really hurts me, because we founded our business on relationships, and that's not the future.
yeah, that's a little frightening to say, but
Horrible.
it's
But
probably very, very true, that we've had to change was forced upon us, not brought upon us, but it was forced upon us. And we're used to an evolutionary change. We're used to a slow thing, we're used to something slower. And when
Mhm.
something as big as it really is.
Yeah, we don't like change unless it's our idea.
Yeah, really. And it really is a complete 180 degree thing from it. We would see NAM 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and there'd be 80 people dressed up like Kiss, and your head would ring for six years afterwards, and maybe that's that's the new thing. But also, there's a great new book out called The Birth Aloud.
Oh yeah, talk to that guy.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating, and it's Leo and Les, and it's their stories
Yeah, yeah.
simultaneously happening, and you see why somebody did it,
Mhm.
and yet we would never have that kind of thing today. That
No, we wouldn't. And I'm going to stray anecdotal for a second here. I go back so far in my business career that I remember dealing with, communicating with dealers and saying, they were talking about either problems with sales or whatever. I said, I don't see you listed in the phone book. You don't have like a display ad. And they go, there's no reason this for being the yellow pages. Everybody knows where we are.
what the what
There's no reason for us to
no the
be
what the what
listed. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, son. It used to be a book, a printed book with people's phone numbers and advertisements for their business, and sometimes prices that were the same for years. How about that?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Done on a typewriter.
yeah, a what?
So, but anyway, that relevance. I don't need this new technology because, and then of course, where are they?
Yeah,
So staying relevant is one of the most important jobs for me today. in everything, communication, everything but my moral compass and the quality of relationships.
And it sounds like NAM lets you move,
Practice that. Yeah,
move that ball down the field. You know,
exactly.
that's really great. I know that everybody's got a time slot here, so I'm just going to say thank you so much for doing this today, Rick. I can't figure
Thank-
out, Rick, if that's a background behind you, but then
No.
every once in a while I see a bug fly by, and I know that you're in New York when if that's happening, because some of them are pretty big. There was one that was kind of buzzing around your shoulder that was yeah, pretty paradise there. Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Richard. This is always fun. I love talking about strings, guitars, NAM, and just seeing your guys' face again. You know, it's been a
Yeah.
long time, and I get to see Tad here and there. His face pops up in random places. But I don't get to see you too often. So it's great to jump on here, talk with you, and listen to Richard's stories, because that's always the best part.
Ah, beautiful. Rick and I have a blast doing this every day, and it's kind of neat to share it. Very neat to share it. Thanks, you guys, for the forum and the podcast and the immense amount of work you have to do to keep the shiny side up on all this.
Yeah,
Increasing challenges to moderating a forum these days. And I think you're indefatigable and a real jewel.
well, appreciate it. And you guys have a great day, okay?
It's a deal.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Be well, Rick. Peace out.
All the best.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.